5 minutes before the speaking starts. So buckle up.
That was a good one.
No, I'm Brent Bowen. I'm the director of the Top Michigan Trails Council. Thank you so much for coming out today. I'm overwhelmed by the crowd, so I'm very excited about that. Thank you for the interest shown in the topic tonight. So first, as required by law, I'm going to recognize all the elected officials that are in attendance. Emmett County Commissioner Charlie McInnes, Commissioner White, I see Bob Wheaton, Supervisor of Missouri Township. I'm Magners, sorry, you're right behind Charlie. From the Petoskey City Council, Tina DeMore from the City Council. Did I forget anybody? Awesome. All right, good. So thanks everybody for coming. And then I'm also joined by Kendall Klingel-Smith, your Petoskey Parks and Rec man. And you guys. And Shane Horn, the new city manager. So if you haven't met him yet, tonight's your chance. Well, thanks everybody for coming. So this is really designed to be like it really is meant to be a community conversation. So I just wanted to give kind of a couple minutes overview. We've been working on this issue for a while. People want to know what's going on. If people don't hear what's going on, that we hear crazy rumors about, well, I heard, and I mean, you would not believe this stuff that people say. So we just thought it would be a really good time to get engaged, and also because of some things that the city's working on and we're working on in partnership with them. So I just wanted to start off with this slide. So this is what we lost, right? This is the Miracle Mile. This is the picture, that's in, or was in all the trail magazines and in all our materials. So this is what we lost, all right? And so we're gonna kind of talk about things. So just a little bit about us. So we are the sort of umbrella trails organization for an 8-county region, from Emmett County all the way to Alpena. So our trail network stretches from Charlevoix to Alpena, 325 miles of trails. So we have a lot. Northern Michigan has a lot. It's awesome. But the Wheelway is sort of like the reason our organization came together, and it's really important to all of us. So you've probably seen, this is our map, sort of depicting the section that's currently closed down. All right. So here's a couple of things I just want everybody to understand kind of going into this conversation. Is that for the Wheelway, it's a cooperation between a lot of different entities, okay? So the county, Bayview Association, Petoskey, DNR, Charlevoix County, all maintain sections of the Wheelway. Petoskey has how many miles, Kendall? 8 miles, okay, extending out of the city limits, so they have one of the bigger sections. And then, so Resort Bluffs, so here's one of the reasons why this is so complicated, all right? So this is actually sort of the last section of the trail that was completed, the section that we've lost. And so a big section of that land was purchased by the county with DNR trust fund money. The city holds the easement for the trail, and it's in Resort Township. Plus, there's a ton of private landowners and easements in this area too. So when people ask me why this isn't done yet, this is one of the reasons. There's a lot of stakeholders. There's a lot of moving parts. So I just kind of wanted to go through a little history. Like I said, this was the sort of last segment that was completed to get the trail fully done. So that was in 2008. In 2019, they started to see late in the year that there were issues with the trail. It was closed. The city started looking into having an engineering firm they were already working with, Baird, do an analysis of what was going on out there. So then a conversation was started with the township and the county about that study. So so that was sort of agreed to by March 2020, which kind of right around when I started this job. Yeah, and then so after sort of the contract was signed with Baird to come out and take a look, but before they had come out, that's when the washout was discovered. So sort of mid-April 2020. And we've been closed ever since then on the trail. So just making everybody on the same page with the timeline. So then in September of 2020, Bear completed that study, which was really geared towards figuring out why the slope failed. That was the main thing it was designed to do. There was sort of an appendix that said, what are some things we could do to fix this? And it was sort of a list of things. And from that, I think people have come up with some of the numbers that sometimes get thrown around about how much this might cost. But that's not what the study was trying to do. It was not trying to say, here's how we should fix it, here's how much we think it will cost. So then after that slope failure study came in, then there was a proposal to look at doing an alternate route along 31. Because, as you know, there was no detour, official detour, MDOT allowed to happen on US 31. So the city pushed back quite a bit on that. And I think in the end, they let you guys have 150 feet of flex posts or something like that at the upper curve. So not really enough to make that safe for everybody. Sorry, I feel like Marco Rubio. I'm glad people remember that. That feels like a long time ago. So there's this immediate issue of there's not an official detour. It's not an official detour. It's not safe. Tons of people are riding on the road. So the city in particular was concerned. We need to do something about this immediate safety issue, which we agreed with. So we started this process to look into what would it take to do a trail along US 31. We were looking for something that could happen, would be fast and cheap. And it turned out it was neither. Because it took until basically June 2022 until that sort of schematic design was presented with a price tag of like at a minimum $6.5 million to build a trail along US 31 in the US 31 right of way. And so people I know, smart people, have gone and looked down there, people who know, and that's a number I've heard is a number that is possible for fixing the real trail down on the bluff. So from the perspective of the Trails Council, it pretty quickly became clear that like juice was not worth the squeeze to build the alternate route. It was absolutely the right thing to do to look into it as an option, but now we know this is a lot of money for something nobody really wants. So with that in mind, there were some, sorry guys, some leadership transitions. So obviously Shane's new city manager. This got presented in June. The very beginning of June. I don't know if you guys have ever tried to get anything accomplished up here in the summer, but it's pretty much impossible. So which is fine, we're all out on the trail. So we came back together with Shane and Kendall and sat down and said, all right, what can we do to kind of start moving this forward? So we, as the Trails Council, launched the CREW, the Committee to Restore the Wheelway, which is something I'm sure a lot of you have signed up for. Probably how many of you heard about this. And so the CREW is sort of our response to 2 years of questions of what can I do? How can I help? So now it seems we have a little clearer idea of what our path forward might look like. So it seemed like it might be the right time to kind of start this initiative. And so just recently, like a week or two ago, the city just authorized a new contract with Baird Engineering, who did the slope failure study, to come back out and do some more data collection to kind of update things from 2 years ago. So that is in the works. Have they been out yet? Do we know? Are they coming?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Oh, good day to come,
yeah. All right, tomorrow. I'm really glad because it was like really, it was.
You don't need that.
I know, I'm really loud.
Just keep trying.
All right. Sorry. I guess that's why they had it. Microphone stand. Emily, can you know this?
That's good. That's good.
Is this good?
Yeah, don't yank on the cord too much.
I kind of hold it. Okay. Thanks. All right. So anyway, so they're coming out really soon, which is great. So then we get to sort of, well, what does that mean? What's next? So They're gonna go out and do the work, look for more data. Then based on what they find, they're gonna come back with a proposal to do a detailed study, an engineering study of stabilizing the slope and reinstalling the trail. So we call that process schematic design. That's what was done for the alternate route up on US 31. And now we want to get that same piece of information for the bluff. So we really can make an apples to apples comparison. And so schematic design, basically you can get a cost estimate with that. And schematic design means you're shovel ready for the government money. The state has like $6 billion of COVID money, it still hasn't spent yet. Hopefully they will. And so to make yourself available for the state and federal grant funds that are the backbone of any trail project, you need to get to this point of schematic design and a cost estimate. So, 6 months from now, 8 months from now, we might have that in hand, and then we'll have a much clearer idea of, where we're going from there. So, then after that, a couple years of fundraising, and then construction on 2025 maybe. We'll see, construction season's pretty limited here, especially along the lake shore. Permitting processes take a long time, government contracting, applying for those grants, everything takes time. So, things are in the best place it's been in the last 2.5 years, but we're still a little ways out from really getting towards a solution on this. So now I'm going to editorialize a little bit. So we did in summer 2021 trail user survey. We repeated a survey that had been done in 2014-15 under leadership from Commissioner McInnes. Thank you. So we redid the exact same study. We tried to do it the same way as much as possible. In 2015, they had a Michigan State professor, a PhD student, 9 graduate students, like 50 DNR seasonal employees. We have 1 intern because the job market's changed quite a bit. But we went out and we followed the same process, and we went out and we counted trail users and we talked to them. And here's what we found out. There's 116,000 people on the Little Traverse Wheelway every year, okay? They spend $1.4 million while they're on the trail. That means like they biked to Beard, okay? So then we asked them, where did you stay last night? So then we counted lodging, so basically hotel and campground stays for just one night, just the night before. Just conservative estimates, that's what we asked them, where'd you stay last night? So that's 4.2 million of lodging revenue. And then we looked at, okay, while they were in town, what kind of money did they spend on retail, restaurants, all that other stuff? That's 4.5 million. So basically it's $10 million of economic impact annually from the trail. And we have had any number of people tell us that. Reg Smith has a great quote in this piece we have about how bikes is the main thing people that come to stay at Stafford's property do. People young, people that are old, they bring their bikes and that's what they do while they're here. So it's a big contributor to the local economy. And I didn't even try to figure out how much tax revenue was generated because that was too complicated. But $10 million of economic impact. So, is it worth making this investment? Anyway, so here's our crew logo. If you haven't signed up yet, please do. And then that's really the end of the presentation. Shane and Kendall agreed to participate in the Q&A if y'all have any questions.
We have questions.
All right, I'm sure you have questions. So we can just kind of roll into that. Does that sound good? All right, well, you want to go first?
What's the bridge idea? We wouldn't have to play with the slope at all.
Bridges have footings, right?
Yeah, but okay.
Well, so you have to do something with the slope.
Yep.
Some way or another. There's homes up above the slope. There's US 31 above the slope. There's businesses above the slope.
It could still fall on the bridge.
Yeah. Well, there's all those things, right? And so when people say, oh, well, several $1 million for a trail really seems like a lot of money. Here's the thing. So let's say it's $6 million, just to make the math easy. Like $5.5 million of that is engineering the slope. Paving a trail is easy, right? So putting the trail in is the easy part. The hard part is doing the engineering work to stabilize the slope. So that's that's what Baird is going to look at now in more detail. What would it take to stabilize the slope? So like I said, smart local people, engineers, design build firms have gone down there and walked it and feel like it's very fixable. I'll say one of the key things is, remember, this was a railroad grade and it was built up, and the inability of water to drain underneath that was one of the issues. So here's the thing, we just don't rebuild the railroad grade, right? It's a trail now. We don't need to put that part of it back in. We could build a bridge to span it. We could build a switchback. There's all kinds of different stuff that could be done that's cheaper and more sustainable in the long run on the shoreline. So those are the kind of options that are going to be looked at.
Have you looked, Brandon, at any other community that's done this across the country, like in California or Florida, or any kind of situation where they had a washout?
No, I'll be honest with you, because I think that. Oh yeah, sorry. So the question was, have we looked at any other communities that have dealt with this kind of a washout issue? And the answer is no, because our staff's not that big. We don't have that much capacity to research it. But also, I think it's pretty clear what we need to do here, right? We need to figure out how to stabilize the slope and rebuild the trail. So, and I guess I almost included a slide on sort of the trail development process, but it's something that the engineers put in the slide deck, so I didn't want to put it in. It's a lot of boxes and arrows and things like that. The engineers are great, but lots of boxes and arrows. And it's a long process to do these kinds of things. So this is early in the trail development process. So we're just going to we're looking at options through this next phase. Yeah.
When you say the slope, are you just talking about the big drop?
So I'm talking about the entire bluff from the water up to the top.
But the whole entire bike trail from East Park to Magnus?
No, there's probably, probably it's really from Arrowhead to Magnus. And even through that section, it's not all fallen in. There's just a couple places that have fallen in.
There's about 4 or 5.
Yeah, so there's So there's pieces of it that are okay. It might all end up getting redone as part of what is happening, probably will. But yeah, really the whole thing needs to be looked at, right?
Yeah, you were talking about the springs that come down there. Is that part of the engineering study to say, what's happening with the water table and is that changing over time?
Yeah, I don't know why none of these questions are directed to Shane and Kendall, but. Oh, hey, look. I think the answer to that is yes, right?
So the second part of the Baird study is a hydrographic, there's a bathymetric survey and a hydrographic survey.
Okay, go back to him now.
So yeah, the answer is.
Speak English.
We're gonna study the water in the water, and we're gonna study the water on the slope.
So
Okay.
as a result of the high water table, we have to take a look at how to mitigate the water that's coming out of the ground. So when Baird came in the first time, they didn't go into that level of detail. Okay, it was basically one spot. Now we have a quarter mile, close to a half mile of trail that's compromised. So that whole section of trail needs to have additional information that they can then put back in their proposal for the schematic design. So not only is offshore going to be surveyed, but the water table, the water table on that whole stretch is going to be surveyed to come up with a way that we can then, control what's coming out of it.
Yeah, and I think that's something that a lot of people don't understand. Yes, the lake levels at the foot of the slope were important, but the wet ground at the top of the slope was actually a bigger part of the problem and the big washout slid out from the top, not from the bottom. So there is an issue that needs to be dealt with, basically drainage of that water at the top. So, yeah.
My question is, the highway department concerned about the new Bedford Road? Because that's where that whole landslide comes into place.
If they're concerned about what?
Are they concerned about the highway?
So I make this joke all the time. The best thing ever would be if MDOT was concerned about US 31, because the trucks would be out there tomorrow. They're taking a wait and see approach, truthfully, from what we can tell. They're just saying, well, everything seems fine, seems like it hasn't eroded anymore. They have monitoring equipment, and that's what's going on, you know. Is that a long-term solution? I don't think so. Personally, I think whether y'all put the trail back in or not, work is gonna have to be done on that slope to stabilize it. So, you know, it's just something to keep in mind.
That is also an area that Baird is going to incorporate with their studies. They're in contact with the state to talk about the results of the monitoring wells that the state has put up by Upper Road.
Yeah.
Everybody hear me?
Yep.
What, back when this was developed, the three municipalities were Emmett, Resort, and the city. What obligation, yes, do they have to repair this? When this easement was created, I believe the city of Petoskey was sort of given the onus of repair and maintenance. What obligation do these three entities have to fix this trail, if any?
Well, so that's an interesting question. And it's one of the big questions underlying everything that's been going on in the last 2 years. So here's the deal. So because the county purchased a big chunk of this land with DNR trust fund dollars, when you take that money, you commit to providing that resource in perpetuity to the public. So if DNR was feeling cranky, they could come to the county right now and say, this resource is not available to the public right now. What are you gonna do about it? Now, you're right that the city did take on the easement for repair and maintenance. So here's the thing, we're starting to see this in a lot of other places too. Most people think repair and maintenance means, like if a tree falls, we cut it down, we mow along the sides. Maintenance is probably not the trail fell into the lake, right? So then you kind of end up in this situation where it's a little bit murky. And so that's why it's been important to have all of the entities at the table. And, you know, I'm not sure exactly really that Resort is under any obligation, but we just like Bob, so we keep inviting him to the meetings. And he keeps coming, so it works out pretty well. But I mean, that needs to be worked out, I think, to some level. So there's definitely obligations on both parties, I would say, the city and the county, for sure.
Can I ask a series of questions? If there's
Sure.
nobody else. One, has anybody, the design to put the alternate route on the south side of US 31 was lousy. I think you need to rebuild it. Having lived in Seattle and San Francisco and biked both places, I tell all my friends, this is absolutely the most scenic trail you'll see east of the West Coast. So it doesn't make any sense to do anything except put it back. However, the north side of US 31, I believe is mostly county owned. Couldn't you just run a bike trail along those bluffs at that height, right, off the 31, but, north of the. Right,
Sure,
south.
sure. So I'm not gonna lie, his first question made me nervous, but then I like where he's going with this. We should rebuild it. So we did, part of the reason it took so long was we did look at the north side. But it's really, like, there literally isn't enough space, because there are some places where the bluff comes so close to 31 now, not just in the washout area and a couple other places, that there just literally physically wasn't space. Also, on that side of the street, there's an issue with the cemetery comes right out to the sidewalk, and there's no more, like, you can't go in that direction anymore because there's people in the ground. So there was just a couple, and there was a couple other issues there where it just seemed like the north side was gonna be not feasible. So that was why we looked at the south side. And I'll tell you the truth, you guys, I thought that we could do it with a really high quality surface crossing on US 31. It's totally possible. You can put out signals and you can put out signs and you can do it in a way that's safe. And nobody wanted to do that, least of all MDOT. So then it became, let's build a tunnel underneath. And I pretty much knew when that was where it was going, that it was gonna not be worth it. Just the tunnel itself is like $2.5 million or $3 million just to do that segment of it. There's a bunch of utility work that needs to be done to make that happen, so there's lots of stuff about that south side route that is just not feasible. And then the north side route wasn't either, and then so here we are.
My next follow-up question is in terms of funding, $6.5 million was for the alternate route, correct? And we really don't know what it would cost to rebuild the trail in its current location, is that correct?
Yeah, so that's the point of this current study that's happening.
Just as a ballpark figure, I think you're looking at tens of millions of dollars to repair it, and you're probably looking at $1 million to get a good engineering study to determine how to repair it. Now, that's a lot of money. I don't know if my figures are gonna hold up, but that's my initial foray. My question is, that's state and federal dollars. Have we included our representatives at the federal and the state level, like Whitmer and Bergman, in this equation?
Yes. I think your numbers are high. I truly do. Because like I said, like I know smart local people who've gone out and looked at this and think it's fixable for a price in the ballpark of what the alternate route would have cost. So, we'll see when the engineering firm goes out and really sharpens their pencils on it. But yes, we have absolutely, actually Representative DeMoose, soon to be Senator DeMoose, from our district has been a big supporter. He's been working for us down in Lansing. He's been very helpful. We put in a funding request to Congressman Bergman's office. They submitted it to the House committee. I forget which committee it was. So that committee didn't pick it up. So that's kind of where it went down. His office submitted 15 and the committee took like half of them. 15 funding requests for his district, they took like half. Ours wasn't one of the ones they took. We have been working with other trail organizations to lobby in Lansing for statewide trail funding. And we have sort of a list of here's great projects that are ready to happen right now. Trails all over the state, this is one of them. So we have definitely pursued that and will continue to pursue it more. So like I said, I got $6 million they haven't spent yet.
Is Whitmer on board? Has she been alerted, I guess, to this?
I have not personally spoken to her. We have people that have. I think it'll be easier to get her attention now. And she should be looking to get some things done, right? Because she should be able to. So now is a good time, I think, for us to go and have those kinds of conversations. But there's a lot of, honestly, bipartisan support in Lansing for trails. Because people have seen how important they can be to smaller communities, particularly for like rural economic development, that it's been a really big deal in communities across the state. So there is a lot of support with it, but it was an election year and it was really, they didn't want to do too much, honestly, so.
Brett?
Well, hold on, sorry, Patrick, I said, yeah.
Brett, thanks, first, thanks a lot. Super great. Second, what is the path? So you kind of laid out this vision of maybe 2025 as a possible vision date. What is the critical path and what has to be done quickly?
Well, so the first thing that has to happen quickly is getting Baird out into the field, and it's happening tomorrow. So that's exciting, because that means before there's ice in the bay, they're gonna be able to do the stuff that they need to do so that they can go back, to their desks in December and January and really work through some of this stuff. So that part of it is happening quickly, which is good. So then, once they get through that, there'll be some kind of presentation of those findings, and then they're going to come forth with a proposal for doing a study, a schematic design study of what it would take to rebuild the trail. So those are the next steps. I would like to think that that's like I said, summer, I think is the optimistic schedule for it. But you know, if they don't get it done by June, like, you know, see you in October when you put your boat up. So, yeah, I mean, we'll see. One of the challenges in our line of work is that we have lots of goals for like building trails, opening trails, doing projects. And there is so little of it that we control, in reality. So, you know, it's up to, if it sits on MDOT's desk for 3 months and the deadline gets missed, then the project's a year behind. You know, it's like, I keep picking on MDOT, but it can happen in different places too, but definitely MDOT. So yeah, I think that this is an optimistic timeline. But I didn't get yelled at by Kevin or Shane when I put it on the slide, so it's possible, but I mean, there's no, like, please don't come back in 2025 and like yell at me or anybody else. Because this is just like a guess at how this might be able to go, if everything really fell into place in the right time. Because I can't emphasize enough, like, how long it takes to get projects done. So, you know, the work that like MDOT's gonna do up on US 31, I know because it affects the Northwestern State Trail. They're planning on that started like 24 months out, right? And the really detailed work started like 18 months out. So all this stuff just takes a long time for like these big projects. Yeah,
So you have a group of certain.
yes. Well, so here's what you can do to help. So trail projects, this is the other reason I thought about putting the trail development process slide up there. So to get a project to sort of shovel ready requires a lot of upfront costs, like these engineering costs, and other things. And so typically when we do projects, we raise money for that phase, like from private funds, from grants, from other things like that, to kind of get that paid for. And then once you get to that, like you have your design concept, then that's when you can go out and start applying to the Transportation Alternatives Program or the trust fund or other things like that. And that's what really starts the ball rolling on funding projects, is you get this big chunk and you can match it against that big chunk. And then you go back to the county and say, oh, we don't really want to pay for this, but look, we got $1 million. Not every county, we're not gonna, this is not gonna be Charlie's problem soon, so. So anyway, yeah, I mean, it's a process, so, now remember, give us money. That's what I'm gonna tell you. That's the kicker. I have like 9 board members over here. Yes, give us money. So here's something I want you to understand about the crew. When you donate to the crew, this money is going into an account that's just for restoring the trail. Like, that's what it's for. Like, it doesn't pay for the payments on my Beamer. It doesn't pay for Bill Prawl's boat. It's going into a fund for fixing the trail. And so, you know, maybe that's kicking in towards the engineering study in like March or February, whenever it happens. Maybe it's paying for additional work to be done. Like, it's different things like that. It's gonna be somewhat open-ended, but that's what the crew is for, is to plug in people like you so that we can say, hey, now would be a really good time for you to contact your city council member and thank them. Or like, now would be a great time for you to give us some money because we have to sort of match what, I don't know, the city is putting into this study, something like that. So that's what we're trying to do now. The reason why we haven't done this sooner for the past 2.5 years is because the way forward was too murky. And now I think it's getting clearer, like what the steps are. And so now we feel comfortable as an organization saying, okay, like now we can start fundraising to support this work and moving things forward. Patrick.
Right, since the redevelopment of the trail is dependent on stabilizing the slope, what involvement and role do private property owners along there have?
That's a good question. No, they're gonna have to be involved. I mean, the easement that they have given for the trail might need to be changed. They will probably have to give construction easements for like the work to be done to shore up the slope. So there's a big role for like the private landowners in that area as this starts to shape up, for sure.
Have they been involved?
Yeah, yes, they have, yes. So I'm sure there's some here tonight. So yeah, no, they definitely have. And I think, like I said, like now that it's becoming a little clearer that we are seriously looking at going back to the original trail route. Like it's the conversation's in a different place than it was 6 months ago. So,
Can I assume that the Trails Council is now the lead entity going forward on this, as opposed to the Emmett County and North City?
I would say that the city is still the lead entity on this. So look, we're the lead advocates, okay? We're gonna fundraise, we're gonna rabble rouse, we're gonna do what it takes, okay? But like at the end of the day, we can't like issue a municipal bond to build something. So, you know, like the government partners are going to have to take a leadership role. There's some money that only nonprofits can get from the state or the feds, but there's other pots of money that only municipalities can get. And so that's one of the reasons why we exist, is to help put all those pieces together. And also so local governments can work with us, so they don't have to work with each other. Yeah, that's a bad line. Yeah,
Are the big business interests in Northern Michigan getting involved?
who are the big business interests?
Well, whoever, you know, the resort owner, the resort decided that people are benefiting from this wheelway.
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of like really important people
So
that,
they are getting
yeah,
involved.
yeah, we've talked to, yes, so I would say yes. So,
They'd shake as a movie.
they would be, so, but like Enbridge hasn't offered us any money to build like the line 5 wheelway reroute, so. Yes,
When the trail was first constructed, and that whole process began, was a similar engineering study conducted?
yes, that was long before I was here, but yeah, before anything like this gets built, you have to do that kind of homework, so yes.
Okay, so that engineering study obviously couldn't predict the future. How will this engineering study be any different? How will we know that the trail will fail again within another 5 to 10 years?
We don't. So I don't think it's gonna be 5 to 10 years. So look, here's what I'm saying, is that we can rebuild this in a way that's more sustainable and less prone to failure. So that's the big thing. Like, do we know what the levels of the Great Lakes are gonna be in 5 years? No, nobody does. But, you know, now we know, because we had record highs, so now we know, okay, well, what is possible has changed. So that changes the way engineers look at these kinds of issues, do their risk assessments, and design the projects. And so I think the crux of it is that you design something that's simpler, that's less prone to break, and less prone to break under these kinds of circumstances. So, you know, is there a guarantee? No, but nothing's guaranteed. And, you know, we think that there's a way to do this that will be like a long-lasting project. So, yes.
What are some ways that we can advocate besides reaching out to the city council? Like for me, I don't live in Chester, so that's not my go-to.
I think it's always helpful to let your county commissioners know that you care about the trail and what it means to the community. You know, and I think just like, here's the thing. You guys are here, I hope, because you care about trails. And not everybody cares about trails, right? So like when you're an elected official, there's 1,000 different things that you gotta think about, 999, which like you don't really care about. Like just, I did one, trust me. So, you know, if, you know, your thing's education, but you gotta figure out how to finance a new garbage truck, right? Like it comes with the job. So, you know, your job as a citizen is to say, hey, you know, you might not be a cyclist, you might not be a runner, but I am, and I'm your constituent, and this is important to me. I think it's part of what makes our community great. It makes our community money. It makes this a good place to live. It creates options for transportation. You know, it's like, you know, you don't have like Latitude 45 had the great sign, right? Like $5 gas, bike free, right? So, you know, it's a way to get around. And So, you know, it could mean a lot of different things to our community. So letting somebody who is like an underpaid, overworked local elected official who has 1,000 different things they have to think about, you know, they might not have a perspective on your particular issue, which in this case is the trail. And then what you can do as an advocate is help them understand that perspective and why it's important.
Frank, can I follow up on that?
Sure.
One thing that I think we all can do, you've talked about giving money. We can encourage others to give money too. It's not always comfortable to say that to people, but when I work as a volunteer trail ambassador on the Little Traverse Wheelway, I meet people all the time who tell me how much they love our trail. They come here just for our trail. That's reflected in some of our survey results. I oftentimes in talking to them say, hey, if you like our trails up here in northern Michigan, go to the trailscouncil.org and find a donate.
Yeah, thank you, Patrick.
And we can all do that with our friends, with our neighbors, whatever.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's definitely, so I thank you, I appreciate that. Like, really do spread the word. Because people, I will tell you, having been in this job for a couple of years now, people do not understand like how trails are created, how they're funded, where they come from. They think that they just like appear and are there. And that's not how it works. It's like a lot of effort by local elected officials, organizations like us, conversations with private homeowners, generosity of donors. It takes a lot to put these things in there. And so people show up and use them, and that's great. That's what they're there for. But just people understanding, at least to a little bit, everything that has to go on behind these projects to kind of make them happen. And that's really one of the reasons why I wanted to do this tonight. Because people will stop into our trail center on M119 and say like, oh, why isn't the wheelway fixed yet? And then I start ranting, and like 10 minutes later, this person is like, oh my God. 15 minutes later, they're like, why are you still talking? So it became clear to me that there's a lot that we should be sharing some information more with the public so they can understand how complicated it is. And everything that's been going on, like just because there's nothing in the paper this week, last week, whatever, doesn't mean there's nothing going on, right? So Kendall's been working on this nonstop for 2 years. I've been working on this nonstop for 2 years. Lots of people have. It's just hard when you're doing these kinds of things, like what are the milestones to sort of report out on? And so that was why I was really big on, I think we need to have a public meeting and talk about, like, we're starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. It's small, but it's there. Yeah.
Well, that gentleman that came in and you talked his head off.
It's been more than one, but go ahead. Yeah.
How about a drop box? How about 7 drop boxes? Help us rebuild the wheelway. There's tons of people going by to throw a couple of bucks in.
So we definitely have one of those in our building. Please drop things into it when you come through. I mean, checks are great. We love checks. I'll go stand out in front of our building and ring a bell like through the holiday season. I think that works with like with bucket. It's hard to get the word out about these kinds of things. I will tell you, having worked at nonprofits for a long time, people have no idea how nonprofits work. Like they think we're like Batman sitting in the back gate waiting for someone to call and like we swoop into action for an issue. And that's not really how it works. We have things that we're doing, and we try to be responsive to the things that are going on, but sometimes you can't. We have like tons of other trail projects going on over these 325 miles, including this. So there's always a lot going on. Did you have a question?
Yeah. Do you know if there's any other projects like this in this country or the world? And do you think that this could be made into a very huge project that could get a lot of attention?
I know that there's been all kinds of highway projects, at least, that are similar to this. Trail-specific stuff I'm like less aware of. But I mean, definitely stuff gets built along coast all the time. So these issues do come up. There are, I think, some possibilities for this, because this was already an iconic area, right? That picture at the beginning of the slide showed the Miracle Mile. And so there is a way to not just bring that back, but to make it better, right? So like, what can we do that's placemaking for this space? What can we do to create a new amenity in this space? So there's a lot of people know there was a sort of an overlook, and that's actually still there. That didn't fall in. So there's things that are there already, but what can we do that's better, right? What can we do for like a community art project for along the trail? What could we do for history of like the Odawa people in this community? What could we do for history of the railroad? There's just all kinds of different stuff that could be done to make this more than just a project. So I gotta tell you, if you guys have ever been, if you put a big sign up, people will line up to get their pictures taken in front of it, right? So if we put a sign, like a metal sign that says like, greetings from Petoskey, like on a postcard, and you have the wheelway in the city in the background, people will line up to take that picture, all right? Cleveland has that on the west side of town. People line up there to get their picture taken next to that Cleveland sign, right? So I'm telling you, so there's all kinds of things that could be done to make this what we already think of as like a really important community amenity, to make it even better, make it even more of a focal point. And that's something that's exciting, because then it's not just talking to local governments or talking to MDOT, it's talking to artists, it's talking to historians, it's talking to community members. There's all sorts of different things that can be done to sort of make this a really cool thing for the community. Yeah.
So how do all of us in this room and others who are interested stay involved and informed? What's the vehicle?
So go to our website, and if you haven't yet, sign up for the crew. So that's a list specific to this project. So some of you are probably already on our email list. So this is a specific to this work, where we will keep you updated. And as things develop, so say, I don't know, in February that we get this study back, so then I'll host a Zoom meeting and explain what's in that study and invite the people from the crew to come into that meeting. So part of the idea is we want to create an information network, right? So it's like, if you go home and think about this, that's great. It would be even better if you went home and tomorrow you told 5 of your friends what you heard here tonight. That's what would really be important. It would be super great if one of your 5 friends had a ton of money and gave that to us, but just start by telling your friends, and then the network will grow from there. But that's really what it is, because I can't tell you seriously the crazy stuff people have come in and said, like, well, I heard this, because of the lack of information. So getting the word out that no, actually they are making progress. This is a solvable problem. That I think is really important. And if you don't do anything else, do that. You know, get that message out to the people you know in the community. Yeah.
Okay, the city is the lead on this project. Are they in agreement that they want to put the trail back where it belongs?
So I'm absolutely not going to commit the city to anything. I would say, oh, look, Jake's coming up.
Oh, he's right there. Oh, somebody had something to say.
So I'm the new guy in town, so I would just say thank you for coming out. The community I came from, down in Tennessee, this would have shut the community down, what you see outside, so thank you for coming out. And, I know this is just the beginning, and I'm here for it, so thank you. So we are committed to seeing this restored in its original location. I want to applaud our council members that are here. When we got the proposal from Baird, it was about, what was it, $38,000 to do this work that starts tomorrow. When I went to our council and said, time is of the essence here, we have a very short window. I didn't realize how short it actually was. This wasn't like last Thursday when it was, what, 75? So that window is obviously closing as we speak, but, so they're gonna be putting in at our marina tomorrow morning and doing some work on the lake, hydrographic work, so that process starts tomorrow, but our council was very supportive of this. We had a short window to get it done. They said, go for it. Obviously, our partners are very important to this project, the county, the Trails Council, Resort Township, the Community Foundation, a lot of partners involved. And certainly we're gonna lean on each other for the next step in this process, but for $38,000, our council said, go for it, let's get it done. we need to move as quickly as possible because we want to try to get some of this work done before the end of the year. So thank you for that support, but we are committed to see this project move forward as the original location. This is a challenging project, as Brent said, as Kendall has said. It's not just putting the trail back, it's restoring the slope. And certainly, I don't want to have my name on it, and I know these two don't either, for a project that potentially collapses, you know, a couple of years down the road. We want to make sure we do it right. And the nice thing about it is we have a room full of very intelligent people. And so we're going to rely on each other to make sure that this is put back in a way that kind of restores that treasure that we all enjoy. So thank you for that.
He doesn't like you.
No, thanks for that, Shane. All right, anyway, so yeah, so that's where we are. And I really want to commend Shane because he's new and he walked in and when we got a chance to sit down with him, I was like, oh boy. Because this is a big thing to lay on the new guy, and he immediately was like, "What can we do to get this done?" So I just really appreciate the way that he has approached everything, right, with like a can-do attitude. So it's been great, and the council has been very supportive as well. So yeah. Well, she stood up, so I have to.
Oh boy, you better get her.
So visual impact of the devastation, something that I don't think a lot of us have seen.
Yeah.
Where can we see pictures or video or what of how badly this is damaged?
So I'll tell you what, I have a drone video on my computer. I have pictures of this on my computer. They're not in the slideshow. What's in the slideshow is the picture from the beginning of what was there and what we lost, right? Because I want to focus on that, okay? So looking at the drone footage does not create the feeling of like, we can fix this. So I made a very intentional choice not to put that in, just be honest with you, I made an intentional choice not to put that in here, because it's just overwhelming. So.
When was the last time you did drone work?
I haven't done any, but when the last time someone was out there, I don't know, Barrett's probably gonna put drones out.
They're gonna do drone work in 2 weeks.
2 weeks, Barrett's gonna do drone work, so there you go. I know that some of the homeowners have paid for drone work. I know one of the local drone guys that's flown his drone down there a couple times just cause. I know Charlie's probably flown over a couple times, so.
I think it's Charlie.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to do the drone work before the snow hits, so we can see.
Yeah.
They'll be up for it tomorrow, so.
Yeah.
Okay, my friend Jim over here had a great suggestion, and that was the Boyne Mountain just put the world's largest timber, suspension bridge. Why don't we get a hold of Kircher and the folks there who have lots of money and say, why don't you put a mini one of these, and then it certainly would be like something that would draw some more people in the area. They would come to Boyne, they would come to the drawbridge, and I think maybe they might be interested in something that looked like their bridge that they just are advertising all over the world.
Yeah. Sure, yeah, like 4 hour lines to get on that thing. So.
Yeah.
You see traffic literally backed up the entire Boyne Mountain Road down 131. It's crazy. That's a cool idea, sure.
Thank you, Jim.
Great idea.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so it's a good one. So our website is trailscouncil.org. Pretty simple. And can you do trailscouncil.org/crew and get straight to the crew page?
Pretty sure you can.
I'm pretty sure we did that.
We'll double check it.
Nice. Yeah, and so from that page, then you can see a link to our donate page. Yeah, so you can donate to us straight online.
Yes.
So you can bring us checks, briefcases full of cash, that's fine. If you got a big like Scrooge McDuck bank I can swim in, we'll do that. Yeah,
Shane, this is mostly for you. We had a similar project 20 years ago. The pier out back fell into the lake. Similar devastating combination of economic and practical impact. But it got fixed. It took a combination of federal and state dollars and kind of a committee like we're trying to get fixed. So if you want to learn from the past, because you're new to the area, you might want to look up what's available about repairing that pier.
yeah,
Once again, on donations.
yeah.
Perhaps, as you said, it's like what, $10 million to the community.
Like six, I mean, we'll find out, 6 to 10.
No,
He means the economic.
Oh, the impact, yeah, $10 million.
Yeah. $11 would be nice if I could get a matching donation from the community. The businesses in the community. If they're willing to do that.
Sure, yeah, yeah, sure. No, we'll do that. We'll talk to our business supporters about that. We can set something like that out. If anybody would like to put out a large challenge gift to start that ball rolling, we can happy to accept it. But I do want you to know that if all you can afford to give is $50, like that's okay too, because every little bit helps, and you're one more person who's part of the effort, right? And so that's really the important thing. So, you know, yeah, everybody likes to talk about how there's a lot of deep pockets of this community, but you know, they get asked for a lot of stuff, right? And so, I don't have all their phone numbers. If you have any, you want to share them, that's fine. But you know, it takes a long time to do a project like this. You know, we've been trying to get the word out about that $10 million economic impact. You know, we've been trying to publicize it. We're hoping someone's going to run in the paper soon about that. So, because I think it's a great story, and I think it's something that, you know, maybe people don't understand. I will say that the state of Michigan in general, and this region in particular, are really looking into the outdoor recreation economy and what an impact it has. Because it's not just bikes, like people, like you see these people come up, right? They got a trailer, it's got bikes on it, it's got kayaks, they got a boat. So people, and that's what's great about this area, that's why we all live here, because you can do all this stuff in this area. So it is a huge part of the economy here, and I think more intentionally marketing towards that and recognizing that is important. So. Anybody else? Matt's trying to start clapping. I think he wants to go home. So, anybody, thank you to Beards for letting us host this event here. We are the charity partner of the board, and they've been awesome to work with. So thank you for everything. This is great. I told you there's too many people for downstairs. So way too many people for downstairs. They're not normally open upstairs on Tuesday, so they did us a solid by having us out here tonight. So thank you for that. And a bunch of members of my board here, thank you for coming. And I recognize lots of you from seeing you on the trail or around the trail center or various places. So thank you. Thanks for your interest. Please call us up anytime. You know, if you want me to rant at you, come by. I'm available. You know, and just, you know, really thank you into the city for the leadership that they've shown and just trying to move this forward. Like this, you know, it isn't simple, but it's something we need to do, and we're moving forward. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much.